On October the 4th, 1942, I had shipped out from the United States out of San Francisco Bay on October the 4th of 1941. So you see, it was just about 1 year that I had been in. And we boarded this Japanese transport, and they pushed us down into the holes, just as many as they could shove in and would pack in. And I took a chill, and everybody else was just sweating and just, oh, it was terrible. The heat is getting them. And there I was sitting there shivering. Wasn't really get shiver because, you know, you go through your chills, then your fever hits you. And so I went to a doctor aboard the ship, not hoping I could get some help. And I didn't dream, because every doctor I'd ever seen said, son, we don't have anything to offer. But this doctor was a younger doctor. I had never met him before. And I told him my problem, and he said, well, son, I'll tell you something. When I came aboard this ship, said a Japanese doctor gave me a big jug of liquid quinine. Wasn't in the quinine. He said, man, it's a terrible dose. I said, I don't worry about the dose. But he said, I'm going to give you a bottle. He had some little bottles. I don't know whether he got them from the Japanese or what. And he gave me, and he said, you just take your little swallow of that once a day. And sure enough, about the third day, the chills and fever left, and my little bottle, of course, played out. But again, now that was just a short time after I had already had that time. And it was getting a little scary because it was coming too close together. We stayed aboard that ship 33 days, and the first 9 days out, no food at all. We got some water, but there was no food. On the 10th day, they gave us a little, well, they sent a bucket down, and what we had, I believe I told you, Ma had me a little sardine can that I picked up on the march. I had to use it for a mess kit, that's all I had. And I got a little in the sardine can. But again, I must tell you this. A POW of mine from my squadron, when he went aboard the ship, he said he had a 5-peso bill, and he gave it to a guard and told him to buy me something. And he bought him a can, about a 2-cup can. They called it margarine. Well, I think we called it lard. It was similar to that. But he knew that he couldn't hold on to that all the time, so he said I was going to be his partner. So when he was out, had to go to the restroom, or wherever he'd go, I was to take care of the little goodie. Well, the Japanese started putting in a little packet of real hardtack, little crackers. They looked like little edible crackers or something. Of course, they didn't have the shape, but they were real hard. And 90% of the guys had the scurvy so bad that their mouths were so raw, they just couldn't eat them. Well, he'd give me a spoon of that, and he'd take a spoon of it, and we'd eat those hardtack cookies. And I didn't develop the scurvy, and neither did he. And so I thought, in a way, that he was kind of a lifesaver to me. So when we got into camp in Manchuria, and that's the other story, I shouldn't go that far, but we lost a number of boys, and 90% of them were just starved to death aboard the ships. Now, the ships that hurt the worst was ones that got hit. Americans, dive bombers, American submarines got some of our ships. I was at Fredericksburg, Texas, down close to San Antonio. There's a Nimitz museum. Nimitz was a Navy man. And we were there at this Nimitz museum for what it was. It was a memorial for this one ship, but I can't call its name. It was Tutoria something. And on that ship, there was 27 of my squadron guys, and my first sergeant was in that group, went down aboard that ship. And I got there to see him put a plaque on the wall, and one of the survivors got to speak, and he said he was the last living survivor of the. And I had met one man in the years before that was aboard the ship from New Mexico, And he thought that he was the only, he hadn't found anybody that had been on the ship, but later he heard he did. But he said that he didn't know what happened. He said that he was blown off the ship and he came to in the water. Now mind you, this is the way the story said. And said there was a timber, said I grabbed this timber and was holding onto the timber and said, well, I was hanging on. Said a life raft just floated up by me and said I just got into the timber and rolled up in the life raft. Not a soul in it, not a thing in it, just vacant life raft. And said I hadn't been in it 5 minutes till a wooden keg, water. Just, he said I rolled it over in it. It was a fresh keg of water, fresh water. Well, there he was, no way to navigate, no way to, but he just bobbed it up and down and this. And he said, days and nights got all confused. He said, I had plenty of water and said I'd sleep all night and wake up in the morning and it'd still be out at the high seas and didn't even know where he was. So one morning he woke up and he was sitting up on a beach. He just stood up. Now this is on the shore of China. And he said most of the China had been occupied by the Japanese. But this one little section, the nationalist China still had it. He said the Lord must have been in his favor, but they picked him up, fed him, of course, and he got back to the States 2 years before I did, you know, but his boat wasn't the one that I was on. I went up early, and he was later down. And there was, I don't know, more than a dozen ships left the Philippines, and I'm saying that at least 10 of them were sunk. And they say, well, many survivors? Not a whole lot. On that ship, there were 1,800 plus, and there was only 9 survivors. That we finally counted for 9 survivors on that ship. And of course, they had stories to tell. We were under a torpedo attack, but this was early in the war, and evidently the Americans weren't that brave, and they fired from a long distance, and there were 2 torpedoes. And I didn't see this, but my friends did. I was there and felt the ship swung. I rocked around. But they spotted in time to change the direction of the ship, and they slipped by. They missed. And one of the guys said, oh, that's something. Wouldn't it have been good to get? I said, I don't know. You know, you never know. If you had been hit, would you have been free or would it have been worse? So it might have been lucky that we didn't get hit. Might not have been here today. Close calls happen sometimes. But anyway, food just got smaller and smaller until finally when we landed in Tucson, I had on a pair of khaki shorts. What happened to my coveralls? I wore the things out on that bridge detail where they wouldn't even, I couldn't even keep them on. So I went to the leader of the group and asked, he said, we don't have any clothes. You can go down there and we had the zero ward where the boys had died. You can go get some clothes.